have missed
of the conflict period that we had, there were no education. There was nothing. So they are adults themselves, and they know nothing. They have no information. They cannot read and write. So what we do, we go out into villages to inform them about their rights, and responsibilities towards their families as well. And we hit the brick wall when we talk about rights. The chiefs and even the women say it is a foreign. When you talk about human rights, it is a foreign concept. It's nothing to do with our culture. But we tell them, no, human rights is part of our culture. There is love, peace, sharing, harmony. These are all in our culture. So it is just because it's in English and you think it's a foreign thing. So the organization targets men and boys and women, the entire communities. So for food security, we have carried out awareness. We have targeted women in the Carteret Islands. Maybe if you Google the name Carteret, they are the first refugees of climate change. And we have targeted that community because the island is sinking, and they are the first community that are being moved away from Bougainville to other bigger islands. The island is sinking. There is no food. They can live on one coconut, only one meal a day. And who goes without food? It's the women. Children don't go to school because they are so far away in the middle of the ocean. They are not closer to the main government center. And nobody knows what they are doing. The education for the children, it's maybe 10 out of 100 children only go to school. So sometimes children cannot go to school because there is no food on the table. So the women on the island depend on, they are harvesters, they are producers. So when climate change impacts on their lives, they cannot grow food. The island soil is salinated. There is no water for them. Fishing grounds, the sea level rise is covering the fishing grounds because women are the ones who are doing, fishing inside, and men fish outside. And they get fish to sell for their food. So on the island, food security is the main thing that, when a woman loses land as well because of climate change, sea level rise erodes soil. So in our culture, the woman owns the land, and land gets passed through her to her children. So when land is lost through erosion, sea level rise, and all this, she has no land to pass on to her children. So this impacts on the livelihood of the family. So it is a very, very difficult situation that our people are going through. So how do we get men to look at women's issues? Because they say, like you are saying, they say gender is a woman's issue. We get women to write stories using the feminist participatory action research method. Women write stories about their experiences, how they are experiencing life on the island. And we have shared the stories with the local level government. We have moved stronger, we built stronger, movements in the communities. So even the people in government, they do not know the problems that women go through. It was only when we started making women document their stories about their problems that they are facing that the government got to listen to the women. So now the women are now involved in some decision making in the committees, disaster committees, food security committee. And last year, we pushed for the local level government to include in the policy that they were making 50-50 women and men representation in the local level government. So for the first time last year, during the elections, there are women now in the local level government, and they are able to raise their issues at the decision-making spaces. So in order for women's voices to be heard, or their issues to be heard, or their experiences to be heard, they need to be involved and included in decision-making, because men will not talk about the issues because they know nothing about it. They are not the ones who handle food every day. It's the women who handle food every day. It's the women who put food on the table. It's the women who work in their gardens, who feel the pinches, when land is salinated. It's the women who, first of all, find that there is no yield in the garden. They cannot grow enough food for their families and for the entire community. So all these things, for women to be involved, we really would like them to be in partnership with the right partners. We do not want partners that come in to make money only. We want partners who are real partners who should partner us at our own terms, particularly on food security for the islanders who are missing out on this, on food security. And economic security is a big concern as well for our women, because the conflict devastated a lot of our infrastructure. Work is very scarce on the island. The only work that women have is to work in the small shops that they are doing or to do their own marketing. But what can they sell at the market when there is nothing in their gardens? There is not enough to sell at the market because they have to feed their families. So economic security is a big, big thing for the women, because the only mining that we had, the mining company that caused a lot of problems for us, was closed. It's over 30 years now. It provided a lot of job opportunities for the women and the men, but there is nothing like that now. The only work that is available is in the small shops or in the small government stations that we have. Women who work can put food on the table. Women who don't work have to work extra hard to find money for their children's school fees, to clothe them, or even for their medicinal needs. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I want to open up for questions. Is there anyone who's sitting on a question now? While you're thinking a little bit, I just wanted to ask, what do you think are the main challenges to actually put a gender perspective on food security? What are the challenges that you face today when working on this?
Okay, what are the challenges? So for me, I see the challenge where, sorry, can you hear me? Yes? Okay. So one of the challenges we are having, and I think a lot of organizations know, are the numbers. The data. In a lot of places, a lot of countries have not performed any gender analysis, or they have not. Let me back a bit, back. So as you know, WFP works in humanitarian crisis, also on development crisis. So when a humanitarian crisis happens, we may go there very quickly working with estimates. And then later, when we are able to do a gender analysis to really know who is it a boy, is it a girl, is it a woman, is it a man, and what kind of assistance they need. So you can say there's a big challenge of really getting the data, especially in the emergency situations. But also we are finding also, even in other countries, it is also challenging having good analysis, gender analysis, to know actually who is suffering. So that's a challenge. Now, but what I want to say is, do really people believe in gender equality?
What do you think?
No, I would like to throw that for discussion. So were you putting up your hand? Yeah. Whether we believe in gender equality?
No, just related to this, actually, I wanted to ask you, maybe it's a sensitive question, but at the highest level of the UN and WFP, do you think, the high-ranking seniors, they believe in gender equality and they support it?
I mean, this is live, right? This you are taping me, right? Is that what you're doing? You are taping me. Okay. Let's say this. I have been. I am actually going to give you an answer, an honest answer. But I have been in WP for many years, and I've seen gender equality go up and go down. Yeah. So, like sometimes we were very close to 50-50. And then when the chief of the top changed, then there was a bit of pushback, and those gains were lost. Yeah? And then the new ED comes and says, now we are again working towards gender equality. Now, when we are talking about the UN, the Secretary General has said, I want gender equality in the UN. And he has called all his principals, the executive director of WFP, and said, we want to have gender equality. And what is different now? What is different is the environment, the world environment. I personally feel that we can no longer get away with it. Because if you look around the world, the wind is behind us. The environment is right for gender equality. Because I think more and more people are starting to really understand the economic benefits of gender equality. So I think people who may be pushing against it are people who have gotten it wrong. What do I mean by this? I mean, really, gender equality is not a zero-sum game. It's not. It's not. It's not taking things from men and giving them to women. Absolutely, it's not. It is saying, working together, let's make our situation much better. And we have seen when we go to some countries in Africa, no, but I would not say African because Africa is so in general. We have good example coming from Rwanda, where when men start seeing how the family is going to benefit if the wife is doing economic activities, bringing income, then they become believers. So where am I going with this? Where I'm going with this is this. Maybe we don't believe in the moral thing that is the right thing to do. Gender equality is the right thing to do. But gender equality makes economic sense. So they have shown that companies which have women at the board, they have actually a narrow pay gap in the organization. They have also shown that where there is diversity, both women and men, the company is more productive. So now going back to the UN, so the SG, the Secretary General, said he wants all the UN organization to go for gender equality. And as a result, our executive director has spoken to his managers and said, let me know what are the challenges, because we are going to do this. And I actually believe because the environment is right for gender equality, and the environment is right for Me Too campaign, I actually think things are going to change. Yeah? So I think that is an honest enough answer, right? Thank you.
And how are you? I know that you accepted a new gender policy in 2015, and I know that a big part of this is talking about how you can work internally with the capacity building. What is the work that is most efficient, in your opinion, when it comes to changing the mindset on gender equality?
So one thing when we ask people, why are you not following up on gender elements in your work? And some people were saying, I either don't have time, yeah, and people were thinking gender is something you do when you don't have anything else to do, yeah. And also the other thing which came up is they did not know what they were supposed to do. So two things we have done which we have found quite effective. WFP has produced a gender toolkit, which is on external platform, and we share it with our partners and NGOs, and you can go and look for it now. It's other people, not me. Other people have found it quite useful. Just to tell you, I'm not saying it's useful because it's produced by WFP, but other people have come to us and told us how useful it is. And what is in the gender toolkit? Then you go to the gender toolkit, and then it says, are you in finance? Are you in communication? Are you in HR? Are you in logistics? This is how you implement gender in your function, and it gives you step by step, step by step. So these people have found it gives you knowledge, so you can say, I don't know how to implement gender in communication, I don't know how to implement gender in supply chain, because the gender toolkit gives you step by step. The other thing we have done is we have opened, like we have a gender training channel, we use the UN women training, I know in gender, and for the time, and then for the around the world, we have what we call gender resource network, where we have around 600 members, both men and women, and they are required by terms of reference to spend at least 20% assisting the country implementing gender. So, and then what also has been quite effective is because now, when WAP goes to speak to the country, we agree with the country what steps are going to be taken to reach gender equality together with food security and nutrition. And these projects come to the board, and then you find the members of the board, like Sweden and other Nordic and the Canadians, saying, where is your gender work? Where is this? Where is this? And this is, when then our people see this is happening, they want to do much more about implementing gender. So again, I go back to this idea, the environment is right. And why is it right? It's because it's not only one person talking about gender equality, but it's donors, the institution, the NGOs. So everybody is starting to see the good for this. Yeah? Thank you.
Thank you. And when it comes to Helen, I wanted to ask you, when it comes to organizations that you partner together with, what do you see as the main issues that you need to address now to be able to work with gender equality?
To be able to work with gender equality, I really would like organizations like the UN Women, UNDP, they need to work, to bridge the gaps that are still existing, because they are the ones that can talk with the government. If they do not persuade the government, then we will just be sitting ducks.
And both of you talked before on the importance of engaging indigenous people and rural women when planning the work. How do you actually come about engaging them? How do you work with them in planning your programs and projects?
Okay, so to start with, there's that project, the joint program project, which I said Sweden is funding most of the money. We are working with FAO, IFAD, and UN Women. So this project is being implemented in 7 countries. And we have, if we take Niger as an example, we have clubs, they call Dimitri clubs. And these clubs at community level, they hold a discussion with both men and women, and they discuss what are the issues with that community. Yeah? And so when they discuss together, men and women, they can see what they need to do, and we have found these clubs, they reduce gender-based violence because there's a discussion between men and women, and also they put the things which are issues for the community on the table. So then partners like WP or IFAD and FAO and UN Women, when we come and say this is how we can assist with MPC and F, already these communities have discussed and they've seen the need for that. So it's not that we have to convince them. Yeah.
In my case, we work with the Chiefs Network, the Council of Chiefs Network, because they are gatekeepers. If you don't talk with them right from the beginning to tell them about what you are going to do in the communities, the doors will be closed on you. So we go into the communities by knocking on their doors first, talking with the Council of Chiefs, who are very influential in their area, before going into the church groups as well. They are very influential. People are members of these groups. And then we then go into the women's groups. They've got women's clubs where we engage with them in the networks that they have. So if you go outside of those networks, you will never be heard. You will not have space to go into the community. So your entry into a community has to be really looked at right from the very beginning.
We have a question over here. Please, if you want to, say your name and maybe the organization you come from.
Yeah, thank you both for coming to speak to us here. My name is Han Maria. I'm from UNHCR, but I'm representing myself. And yeah, my question is about, you spoke about education earlier. And I was wondering if you both could share a little bit about your experience of the different opportunities, but also challenges with this innovation in education. For example, you know, bringing education through a phone or a smartphone or digital solutions that you speak about. How does that fly, so to say, if you're in a council of elders and chiefs?
Yeah, I think the mobile phones, digital, you know, information is very, very, it goes, people accept it everywhere. And with digital, you know, with information, and a person who has a mobile phone can share information with those around them. And mobile phones reaches so many people, particularly those that do not have access to radios. Because, for example, in Bougainville, we've got only one radio station, which is owned by the government. And only certain areas can listen to the news, can listen in, because the waves do not reach out. But with mobile phones, because digital has a lot of towers everywhere, and everyone owns, almost everyone who owns a mobile phone has the key to information. We say they are powerful because they get information, they are informed by, you know, just going on, opening their mobile phones and getting the information they need, particularly at this time. Those that do not have mobile phones, they come as well to those that have mobile phones and they ask them for use. So if people had small things like that, they would really be empowered. Even a mobile phone does not need, we have found in the youth groups that we have been working with, the out-of-school youth groups, even if they don't know how to read and they are shown how to use a mobile, they can find their ways around. They can get information, and some of them, they read the numbers on the telephones and they know. Seeing numbers popping up every now and then teaches them, you know, to use the numbers. And even reading simple messages on their telephones makes a lot of difference.
So in addition to mobiles, we use schools' platform to provide information. And we have found that it's so useful because sometimes if we are using the school maybe to give food assistance, we can also use the schools for our partners to talk to the people who have come for food assistance about sexual health and reproduction rights. Yeah? And this is quite very important to use these forums where a lot of partners can come in, both the UN and also NGOs. We are also working, as I said, WP works with around 1,000 NGOs around the world. We are working with Plan to assist us to educate girls on menstrual health. So I cannot really emphasize enough the idea of working with partnership to inform people and to further the impact of food assistance.
Yes.
Yeah?
I agree with you, because when people are well informed, then they can make decisive choices about what they can, you know, they can do with maybe a small block of land or the type of food that they would like to grow in a certain area where it's not good. So that is a very good idea. And to add on to the mobile phones have been very useful to us because we've been using mobile phones to communicate with our counselors who are in various districts, particularly when there is a client, gender-based violent client who wants to come in for counseling, then we can talk with our counselor who is out in the near them, the location near them, for them to go and see that woman or the girl or they even go to schools where teachers can call in and ask them to go. So that is a great idea.
Yeah. Again, to touch on Ellen's value of mobile phones, we also give them to women farmers so they can be able to call in and look find out what are the good market prices. So in that way, it's also empowering. And also connecting people, groups, and women farmers groups, and so on.
Yeah, that is really good. Because it's very useful when, particularly on our island, ships only come once a month from outside. So a woman with a mobile phone who lives near where the wharf is can call other women in the rural districts, the ship is here now, bring your produce to the market. So it's very helpful in that sense.
We have another question here in the front.
Hi. Hello. Okay. I'm Laura. I'm doing a master's degree in disasters here, in public health and disasters. But I used to work at an NGO in Peru, in the Amazonic area. Based on what you said about innovation strategies, we had a couple of projects with the Barefoot organization in India where we sent women to build their own solar panels. But we had a lot of resistance in indigenous areas because these solar panels were actually meant to charge their phones to communicate maternal health, because it's in the area where there's the largest mortality and maternal mortality and infant mortality rates. And we had a lot of pressure because they were telling us that we were not doing a gender approach. So I was wondering, in these innovations, or especially in certain topics, such as what you mentioned, covering SG 2, 3, 4, like we need to cover education, health, and nutrition and food in a gender-based, with a gender-based focus. How do you actually empower these projects, avoiding resistance? Especially the most surprising thing was that in our case we had more resistance from women themselves than from actually men from the community. So sometimes I think as organizations we go to a place assuming that the resistance will be put by men instead of women, and we actually face especially elder women who do direct indigenous organizations, and these communities are led by women, and these are the most resistant ones. So how do we engage them into the process of involving new strategies and this gender-based approach? Because some people may think that we're affecting the culture or not. How do you deal with that?
So now there was a statement which was made today, and that statement is things like gender-based violence cannot be explained away by culture. People can never hide behind culture about these things. But Laura, now if I step back, this issue that how do we really make a pathway with nutrition, gender, and education in the rural communities? And I still need to step back and say we still need to look for people who are convinced at that local community. May they be the elders or the chiefs, somebody who can open the door for us. That is a starting place. Couldn't it be both a woman and a man who can open the door for us? And so if we go through looking for somebody who from that community can open the door for us. Now, if those people don't open the door for us, what are the other alternatives? Because we can't really, we can never force anything on anybody. All we are hoping is to show people the benefits of education, the benefits of good nutrition and the benefits of gender equality. Just if I would like to use myself as an example, I came from a family where normally girls were not sent to school. It was boys who were sent to school. But my mother insisted that, I don't know how, she did not go to school. She insisted that the girls go to school, just like the boys did. So that's how she had 8 girls, so she could not, if she did not send the girls to school, it was like lost. But she said, look, if you guys want to do something with your life, maybe you need to go to education. Otherwise, the alternative is just remain around in the village, have 10 children before you are 12, and look after cows. So as a result, my sisters and myself went to school. Now, I have heard, when I go to the village, I heard men, young fathers saying, we want our girls to go to school like this woman's girls. So it just starts with one person to see the benefit of it. But then I have to come back to this point that we, as in international institutions, we cannot insist. Now, World Food Program, UN Women, FAO, and IFAD can show the government this is what needs to be done, but it is up to the government now to say, we need to change our laws to say women will own land. We need to make it possible for girls to go to school. We need to make possible for breastfeeding mothers to have good nutrition. The government has to do its part. So because we cannot insist, the government has to make the right environment. So I'll stop there and let Ellen speak more about this question.
Yep. For any project to to work in Bougainville, like I said earlier, women own the land. Women need to be consulted first in order for the project to work well. If women, or when women are not consulted, these are the times women will say no. They will not want the project to go ahead. So their brothers can be approached later. But first and foremost, it's the women who need to be consulted about the use of the land on anything, any projects, gardens, or agriculture, or big plantations. It's the women who own the land. And for a project to flourish into the future, women need to be consulted and need to be told about the sort of project. They should be well informed, like they say, free, fair, consultations, prior consultations. So it works well for us like that, because women own the land. That's why the government or policies should take into account, how gender, particularly it affects how women, different roles women and men have in society before we can progress further into the future.
With regards to this question, Kawinzi, have you ever met, or in your experience with the WFP, have you had any projects where you actually had to leave a gender perspective behind and say, okay, to be able to do this project, we can take into account this perspective?
No, unless it is something where we have to go very quickly and distribute food, like drop food from the aeroplane because of the emergency situation. At that point, if we drop the food from here, at that time we are not saying we are going to feed so many women and so many men. So in an emergency situation, we may just rush in to give food and then later on do the gender analysis. But right now with this policy, gender policy, WFP is saying it's going to mainstream gender equality and women empowerment in all its activities. May they be relating to food or project activities, but also the processes in the organization. So that is a commitment which they have said that we are going to insist on gender equality in all our activities, whatever those activities are. So it's only where we may go in and run out is where we are dealing with emergency situations.
Like we found in Bougainville, women actually very, very strong. They shut the mine because they were not consulted first, by the company who operated the mine 30 years ago. And most of the funds or the money, 99% went to the company, and only 1% of the profit went to the women. So the women shut the mine. And that's how conflict started because of environmental damages. Good arable land was being, affected by the waste from the mine. And the women were so very careful about where the water was going, where the environmental damages. So women closed that big, massive mine that we had. And even today, it's still closed. And 2 weeks ago, our government wanted to lift the moratorium or whatever you call it. I don't know. Yeah. And the women again went in full force and they set blocking the road access to the mine site. So again, the two governments of Papua New Guinea and the NBCL, Bougainville Copper Mine Limited, they are again now going back to the drawing board to consult with the women. So women can make a difference if they talk about or they share their experiences. Because, and together with their men, the brothers, their uncles, everyone, and now the men are listening. They're saying, yes, it's really true that women own the land, and it's really true that we should be listening to women's voices, to the women's decision about the land, because we have not all benefited from this massive copper mine. So it has made a great difference now to the mindset of the men in Bougainville.
Thank you. We have two questions. The one's in the back first, and then...
Thank you. Lilian Nanga, HR professional and former WFP Cameroon employee. We all know that the World Food Programme is a leading UN agency when it regards instituting innovative solutions to issues. I will rephrase the gender policy, which states, a world with zero hunger can only be achieved only when everyone has equal opportunities. So how do you conciliate this policy with view of the fact that most food security programs favor women and not men? Is there some kind of positive discrimination for these equal opportunities to be achieved? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And you are using your inside information to put me on my place. But just to talk about the gender policy, we are actually very proud of it because it was the first policy in the UN which talked about the rights of lesbian and gay people. So there we did a good thing. Now, it is true we are saying we need a world where everybody has got food security, everybody, boys, girls, and men. Now, and then, so I go back and then say, so having said that, we can never assume that it is always going to be a woman. But currently, we find, because of also the crisis where in countries where WFP is working, there are also countries which are burning in crisis. And so far, and I think you somehow know it, because of this crisis, it ends up a lot of women and girls suffering without food or without the correct nutrition. So now, as we speak last year, WFP assistance to both men and women, or girls and boys, was almost 50-50. So where we give women or girls targeted intervention is because there is a specific need which has been identified. Like these girls in Lebanon, we are teaching computer skills so that they can work. So if then there are boys who need that, there are areas where we go to assist boys. So it may look overall as if we are favoring women, but no, if we have the right analysis, it is pointing to us. It may be a boy this time, or a girl, or a man, or a woman. So that's how we are following. But you can just see when you look around the world, you can see when you look at South Sudan, you see all these queues of women queuing for food. Because of all the crisis, there are areas where we need to assist women because they are the ones who are being more affected by the crisis. Did you want to say something, or is it too WP specific?
That's your specific.
Very specific for you, I think. Let's move on to the next question.
Okay, thank you. My name is Therese Svensson. I'm from PMU. We work with civil society in 35 countries, and I have two questions for you both. I would like to know, you have touched upon this, but I also want to ask you again, what is, according to you, what's the added value for WFP to work with civil society, and what is the biggest challenges, if you could bring up some? And then also I'm curious to know what you think about including family planning in the programming of nutrition efforts, and because you didn't really talk a lot about that. You mentioned SRHR, but not very much so. And I'm curious to know more. What do you think?
Okay. What is the added value for WP to work with the civil society? If I step back a bit, with the World Humanitarian Summit and with the new way of working, what and the UN reforms are saying, that we have to work with a cross-section, with partners, with a collective goal outcome over several years, with a collective goal outcome. So now, if we go to a country like Kenya and we are going to talk to government, how are we going to be successful if we are not included the civil society, which actually may open gates and the doors for us to have more impact on some areas of the country? So again, even if it was not a moral right or something required by the UN reform, it makes sense if we want to have impact. If really we want our projects and our program to be successful, we need to have a dialogue and work with the civil society. So that is like a pillar of moving forward with what we are doing. Family planning, we work with our partners, and we have projects across the countries where WP works, the 80 to 82 countries in WP works. And like we have our projects with UNPA in Ethiopia, where when we are having conversation, arranging with committees or people who have come for food assistance, UNPA can come and talk about family planning and can talk about sexual reproductive health and rights. So we work that with our partners who are more expert, and that is their area. So it's part of the cross-section we are working together either with UN partners or NGO partners.
And that's what we do as well. But we work, in family planning. People are so addicted to their churches. They listen. They will not stop having children over and over again every year, in, out. Like yesterday, I got a Facebook message from my local priest who looks after our parish, said, Helen, I have just baptized 105 children in one small community. And I said, it's time to talk about family planning. And he said, no, it's up to the families themselves to decide. So churches need to be engaged fully in family planning, because particularly land is not growing. Land is getting smaller because of climate change, eroding and taking away maybe 89% of our land. So families need to think about family planning so that there is enough food on the table, to feed a certain number of children, and so that these children can all go to school. Because where I come from, it's a matrilineal society where my mother, my grandmother, would like me to bear more children, girls particularly. If I have 4 boys, my mother will say, your land will be taken away. Have more. I want a girl, so she can carry on the line. She can look after the land when you are dead. So the church and culture plays a big role in family planning, and they need to be educated.
I think we have time for one more question before we have to end.
Or even 2 or even 3 questions.
Maybe, depending.
We still have minutes.
We have one question here in the front.
Thank you for your presentation. I hope my voice will let me speak. I'm Caroline Andersson from the Stockholm Environment Institute, and I have a question for both of you. In your respective contexts, do you have strategies to make sure to target and work for improved food security for people who do not identify or code as women or men, and also of trans people?
Yes, we have a strategy in place, particularly looking at the different types of roles that women and men play in agriculture. So a strategy that we have is to engage with men and families together, not only the women, but when we go out to the gardens, we try to involve the father, mother, and children together. So everyone is involved in growing the type of food, that they need for their everyday consumption or for sale later on. So that's a strategy that we are using now to involve the entire family. Because if we involve women's groups, these women come from different families. They've got different husbands with different mindsets. So it is better to work with small families because they think about themselves. They think about what this plot of vegetables will give to their children and themselves, and what is left over is for selling at the markets. So it's better to target families than entire communities, because we have used the system in engaging with the entire communities, but there are small problems. We are making a leeway into that. It's positively moving forward, but the best is to work within a small family unit in order for you to really find, food security within the household, within the community, and within the entire clan, because this is the family that will put food on the table or give food to the feast in the clan.
So where WP is concerned, our policy, our strategy is that whoever is in need, whether it's what gender or what, WP will assist. That's the policy. And the good example is when we started assisting people who were affected by AIDS. Long time ago, when AIDS was, was like, ooh. So it was very important for WP to give food assistance to people who were suffering with AIDS, because as you know, you can't take strong medicine on empty stomach. And when we were doing with this work, people were like, those people were sick. It's long time when there was a taboo. But the humanitarian principles, which we'll also find, we approach when we are dealing with the different communities who are maybe at war with each other, is that we don't take sides, and we must assist who is in need, even if that person is from different community, or if that person is disadvantaged in that community because of either religion or something else or their sexual. We don't take sides. We assist whoever needs us. You end a comment. Sorry. Yeah.
Yep.
I'll try to keep it short because I know we're a bit low on time. My name's Kevin Adams. I'm also from Stockholm Environment Institute, but I work primarily with climate finance. So I'm thinking from a programmatic perspective. WFP clearly does a wide variety of work in this area. What's the key factor between a project that works and a project that doesn't? What are some of the key pieces that make your projects effective? And do you have mechanisms in your institution to learn from the projects that don't work, to learn from failure and to improve?
Okay. Really, for a project to work, is a project where people have sat down and thought, why do they need this project? What is this project supposed to do? You know, like, how will we know what is success? And for us to come there, we need to have, in the beginning, done assessment in the country, either through our we have expertise teams who can go in and assess. And also, these are the people who are going to talk to the communities, talk to the households, and talk to the chiefs and religious leaders to see what is, to pinpoint what is the need. And if there's a need, who actually needs that need? And does that need ask for food to eat immediately? Or is it a need which we can meet through food assistance, like maybe cash? Yeah. Is it, so once we know, is it boys, is it girls, through gender analysis and discussion, once we identified what need, and then together with the community, we agree what kind of assistance it is. Then from beginning, you design a project which meets those needs, and you build into that project how you are going to monitor and evaluate and measure, yeah, at the end, whether you really transformed the lives of those people you are assisting. So we follow that, and I must say that WFP has got very good, very supportive donor system. When we bring our projects to them and say, approve this, they look and say, no, this does not do A, B, C, D, and I don't believe this is transformative enough. And when you talk about gender, are you ticking boxes? And they challenge us to be, and this is good. We are not only in WFP, but there are other checks coming in and saying, no, maybe you need to look at this more. So together with the input from the donors, the board and the community, and also it's quite important, and also our donors are saying, we don't want you just to give us numbers like, say, we assisted 50 million women. We want to know how their lives were changed because WFP was there. So this is a good challenge, and I hope you and the community will continue challenging us, the international organizations, to do much more better work and to make our project more impactful. Yeah?
I think we have time for one last question before we have to finish.
Okay. Sorry. Thank you very much for a very interesting evening. My name is Madeleine Fogda, and I work for SIANI, which is the Swedish International Agriculture Network Initiative. I'm a little bit curious to see the role of World Food Programme now, because it's a relief program, but where does the relief goes into development? And can you see also that your work is changing, because we have been hearing about islands that are sinking, the arable land that are shrinking, and so how much can you foresee another future where you will be working much more on climate adaptation and mitigation?
Yeah, we are actually already working very much with climate. We have a climate division. We have a climate policy, which also we have insisted that gender is mainstreamed in it. But just to go back in the beginning of what you said, some of us who are much older know that WFP started as a food aid organization just to go in and give food aid during emergencies and so on. But for really to look in the future, we need to work across both relief, emergency situation, and also on development. Because these communities, they don't want to be given assistance. They don't want to be just helped. They want to have solutions to change their own situation, or rather to empower their own situation. And how do we, so you can see now WFP becoming, how we went from only food aid to food assistance, where we are saying, maybe you don't need food now, you need cash to start something which can help you, or you need cash for you to build an irrigation system, or for you to rehabilitate land which was lost, which we are doing a lot in Sahel area, or you need this money to grow nurseries. But also, again, we are working with governments for good climate policies. And because we have a system where we can share information on disaster, you know, when and climate change and this. So this is becoming, again, and we can't move away from not having climate discussion included in our work. And again, this is also something which is becoming which is quite important for the Nordic countries, where they ask us, have you looked at this climate and this? So it's something we are including in our projects to look and to see how we can mitigate the bad side effect of climate change.
Unfortunately, I have to stop the discussion. I feel we're just getting started, but hopefully we can continue this discussion in other forums.
No, but they did not answer the question whether they believe we need gender equality for food security. Yeah? Yeah?
Good. Finally. Well, thank you so much, Kawinzi. Thank you so much, Helen, for taking part in this discussion, and thank you all for participating.
Thank you so much for coming.